millionaire follows his maid after work, and upon arriving at her house, he breaks down in tears. Marcus Thompson had never done anything so impulsive in his 48 years of life. But there he was, inside his imported car, discreetly following the woman who had been cleaning his house for 2 years. Rachel always rushed out exactly at 5 in the afternoon, even when he offered overtime with double pay. Today, driven by a curiosity that had been bothering him for weeks, he decided to find out why she rejected any opportunity to earn more money. The light rain falling over New York City made the afternoon even grayer. Marcus kept enough distance to not be noticed, but close enough to follow Rachel's hurried steps through the downtown streets. She carried 2 heavy bags and walked with determination, despite the weight that seemed to double her shoulders with each block. Marcus thought about how many times he had seen her arrive at work soaked by the rain, always punctual, always smiling, but never revealing anything about her personal life. "Why doesn't she take a bus?" he murmured to himself, watching Rachel cross another busy street. It was then that he saw her stop in front of a public school. A girl of about 6 ran toward her, and Marcus felt his heart race as he watched the scene. The child hugged Rachel tightly, as if she hadn't seen her in days, even though it was just the end of another school day. Marcus parked the car at a safe distance and observed the interaction between the two. The girl, small and slight, wore a school uniform a little too big for her body. Rachel knelt on the wet sidewalk, not minding the dirt, and helped the child put on a jacket she took from one of the bags. "Mom, I drew this for you," said the girl, showing a crumpled paper. "How beautiful, my love. Let's keep it at home so it doesn't get wet in the rain." Marcus felt something strange in his chest, seeing that demonstration of pure love between mother and daughter. It had been 3 years since he had experienced anything like it. Since he lost his wife, Jennifer, his life had been reduced to work and the emptiness of the mansion where he lived alone. The two began walking together, and Marcus followed them, keeping his distance. The girl chattered animatedly, gesturing with her small hands, while Rachel listened attentively, asking questions and laughing at the childish stories. "Mom, the lady at school said you'll have to come there again tomorrow," said the girl, with a sudden sadness in her voice. "Don't worry about that, Emily. Mommy will sort everything out." Emily. Marcus stored the name in his memory. He had never heard Rachel mention her daughter in all these years working for him. In fact, Rachel never spoke about her personal life, always professional, always discreet, always efficient. They walked for another 20 minutes in the rain, passing through increasingly modest neighborhoods. Marcus realized they were heading to an area he knew only by name, Hope Heights, a working-class neighborhood in the east side of the city. The contrast between his world and hers became more evident with each block. While he lived in a mansion in Beverly Hills with a garden, pool, and 3 maids, Rachel walked miles to reach a simple house on a cobblestone street. When they finally stopped in front of a small house painted a faded blue, Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. The house had no garage, just a low iron gate opening to a tiny yard. There were several other identical houses on the same street, all attached to each other. "We're home, Princess. Let's go in and dry off," said Rachel, searching for her keys in her bag. Marcus watched Rachel open the gate and go inside with Emily. For a few seconds, he managed to see inside the house through the open door. A small living room with old furniture, but everything very clean and organized. On the wall, there were children's drawings hanging, probably made by Emily. It was at that moment that Marcus began to understand. Rachel didn't accept overtime because she had a daughter waiting for her. She didn't talk about her personal life because she knew there was an abyss between her reality and his. She always rushed out because every minute away from Emily was a minute of a childhood she didn't want to miss. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Marcus remained in the car for a few more minutes, trying to process what he had discovered. Through the lit window of the house, he could see silhouettes moving. Rachel was helping Emily change her clothes. Then the two headed to what looked like a tiny kitchen. The rain intensified, beating hard against the windshield of Marcus's car. He turned on the wipers and kept watching, as if he were watching a movie that completely hypnotized him. Rachel appeared at the kitchen window, starting to prepare something for dinner. Marcus noticed she moved with the same efficiency she showed in his home, But here there was something different. She was humming softly while she cooked. He had never seen her hum during work. Emily appeared next to her mother, dragging a chair to reach the sink and help with some task. The scene was so natural, so full of love, that Marcus felt his eyes well up without exactly understanding why. He thought of his own childhood, of how his mother was always too busy with social engagements to participate in simple moments like this. He thought of how he and Jennifer had tried to have children for years, and how the house always seemed empty, even when they were together. Marcus's phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was his assistant, reminding him of an important meeting the next morning. The reality of his world invaded that moment of contemplation, and he realized he was completely soaked just from opening the car window to listen better. "Mr. Thompson, are you all right? The connection is strange," said the voice on the other end of the line. I'm fine, just reconfirm the meeting for 9 in the morning." Marcus hung up the phone and looked again at Rachel's house. The curtains were already closed, but he could still see the soft light from inside. He imagined the two of them eating dinner together, talking about their day, Emily showing the drawings she made at school. For a moment, he felt like getting out of the car, knocking on the door and what? Offer help? Seem like a nosy boss? Violate the privacy of the only person who worked for him and never caused him any trouble? Marcus shook his head, trying to regain his common sense. But he couldn't stop thinking about how Rachel carried heavy bags for miles in the rain, about how her daughter wore a uniform that was too big, about how the house was too small for 2 people. He remembered all the times he had offered Rachel a raise, and she politely thanked him, but never seemed truly excited. He had always imagined it was professional discretion, but now he understood that maybe she simply didn't believe she deserved more than she already received. The rain began to let up, and Marcus realized he had been there for over an hour. He decided to leave, but promised himself he would try to understand Rachel's situation better, not to intrude, but because something in that scene had touched him deeply. On the way back home, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about what he had witnessed. The quiet dedication of Rachel, the unconditional love between mother and daughter, the simplicity and dignity with which they lived, despite the obvious difficulties. When he arrived at his empty mansion, the contrast was brutal. 3 maids greeted him attentively. Dinner was prepared and served on the mahogany table in the dining room, but the house felt like a museum. There was no laughter, no spontaneous conversations, no life. Marcus ate in silence, thinking of Rachel and Emily having dinner in their tiny kitchen, yet full of human warmth. For the first time in years, he questioned whether his wealth truly made him happier than they were. That night, Marcus barely slept. He kept imagining what Rachel's morning routine must be like, waking up early, getting Emily ready for school, making the long commute to his house to work, always punctual, always efficient, always discreet about her struggles. The next morning, Marcus observed Rachel with new eyes when she arrived for work. He noticed small details that had previously gone unnoticed: the slightly worn shoe, the purse patched in a few places, the way she always brought her own water bottle to save money. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," she greeted him, as always, with a genuine smile. "Good morning, Rachel. How is your family?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Rachel paused for a second, surprised by the personal question. "Everything is fine, thank you. Do you need anything specific today?" Marcus noticed how she skillfully deflected the personal question and redirected it to work. It was this discretion he had always respected in her, but now he understood it could also be a barrier built by the need to maintain professional distance. Throughout the day, Marcus found himself watching Rachel work with an attention he had never shown before. She cleaned each room with meticulous care, organized everything with almost artistic precision, and always left small touches that made the house more welcoming. At 4:45, Rachel began to gather her things, as always. Marcus felt the urge to ask about Emily, about school, about the heavy bag she carried every day, but something stopped him from breaking that professional protocol she had established. "Rachel, wait a moment," he said as she was already saying goodbye. "Yes, sir? I wanted to know if you need anything. Any help with any personal situation?" Rachel looked at him with an indefinable expression. For a few seconds, Marcus thought she would open up, talk about her difficulties, accept his help. But then she smiled politely and shook her head. "Thank you very much for your concern, Mr. Thompson, but everything is fine. I have to go now, if you'll excuse me." Of course. See you tomorrow." Marcus stood at the door, watching Rachel walk away down the street. Part of him wanted to run after her and insist on the offer of help. Another part respected her dignity and independence. But a third part, more curious and persistent, wanted to better understand the whole situation. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that would completely change his perspective. He would follow Rachel again, but this time with a more defined purpose. He wanted to understand not just where she lived, but how she lived, what her real needs were, and how he could help without hurting her pride. Marcus waited a few minutes before leaving home and taking the same route Rachel took every day. This time he knew exactly where she would be, so he could keep a greater distance and observe more calmly. When he arrived at Emily's school, Marcus parked across the street and waited. At 5 o'clock sharp, Rachel appeared, walking quickly, always punctual to pick up her daughter. Emily ran out of the school and jumped into her mother's arms. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the child's genuine joy at reuniting with Rachel. They talked for a few minutes at the school entrance, and Marcus noticed a teacher approaching to speak with Rachel. The conversation seemed serious. The teacher was gesturing and pointing to some papers she held in her hands. Rachel listened attentively, nodding her head and asking a few questions. Emily remained by her side, playing with a small doll she had taken from her backpack. After about 10 minutes, the conversation ended. Rachel took Emily's hand, and they began the walk home. Marcus followed them, but this time paid more attention to the route. They stopped at a pharmacy along the way. Rachel went in with Emily, and they stayed there for almost 20 minutes. Marcus wondered if either of them was sick, but when they came out, they weren't carrying any medicine bags. In fact, Marcus noticed that Rachel left the pharmacy with a worried expression. She was speaking softly to Emily as they walked, and the girl seemed to be comforting her mother rather than the other way around. They made one more stop at a small bakery. Marcus saw Rachel counting coins before going in, and when they came out, they carried only a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Minimal groceries, calculated to the penny. For the rest of the walk, Marcus noticed how Rachel protected Emily from the rain that had started again. She held a small umbrella so that it covered her daughter more than herself, arriving home with her shoulders completely soaked. Marcus stayed in the car until he saw the two enter the house. This time he was determined to understand the whole situation better. He decided that the next day he would talk to Rachel more directly, offering not just help, but a real opportunity for a better life. As he drove back home, Marcus thought about how unfair life could be. He had more money than he would know how to spend in several lifetimes, but he felt empty and lonely. Rachel had just enough to get by, but showed an emotional wealth he had lost long ago. That night, Marcus made a decision he considered the most important of the last 3 years. He would find a way to help Rachel and Emily without humiliating them or creating an awkward situation. But first, he needed to understand exactly what problems they were facing. The next morning, Marcus arrived early at the office and asked his assistant to discreetly research the school where Emily attended. He wanted to understand if there were any pending issues, financial problems, or any situation that might be worrying Rachel. When Rachel arrived for work, Marcus observed her with even more attention. He noticed a tension in her shoulders that he hadn't perceived before, a worry she was trying to hide behind her usual professional smile. "Rachel, may I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, after letting her settle into her morning routine. "Of course, Mr. Thompson. Is something wrong?" Marcus led her to the living room, a less formal environment than his office. "Please, have a seat. I wanted to talk about some changes I'm considering making to the house." Rachel sat on the edge of the armchair, clearly tense, perhaps imagining she was being fired. "I'm thinking of hiring more people to help with the maintenance of the house and garden. That would mean less work for you, but I would also like to increase your responsibilities in other areas." "What kind of responsibilities?" asked Rachel cautiously. "Coordinating the other housekeepers, planning events I occasionally host here, perhaps even helping with some administrative aspects of the household. It would be a promotion with a corresponding salary increase. Marcus saw Rachel's eyes light up for a second before caution regained control of her expression. "Mr. Thompson, I really appreciate the trust, but I'm not sure if I have the qualifications to—" "Rachel," he interrupted gently, "in 2 years, you have never been late, never missed work, never broken anything, never been disrespectful, and you've always left everything perfect. What qualifications do you think are more important than those?" Rachel fell silent for a few seconds, clearly moved. Marcus realized it might have been the first time in a long time that someone had publicly acknowledged her professional worth. I would be very honored by the opportunity, but I need to be honest. I have a young daughter, and sometimes I might need to leave early or be absent because of issues related to her. That's not a problem. In fact, one of the changes I want to make is to make schedules more flexible for all employees. Family always comes first. Marcus saw Rachel's shoulders relax for the first time since she started working for him. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted from her back. "When would this new role start?" she asked. "How about next week? But first, I'd like you to help me interview candidates for the other positions. You know the house better than I do, and I trust your judgment about people." Rachel smiled, and this time it was a genuine smile, not just a professional one. "Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. You have no idea how much this means to me." Marcus felt a satisfaction he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time, his money was being used to make a real difference in the life of someone he admired and respected. "There's one more thing," he said. "The new salary will be double the current one. I know it's a big raise, but it's in line with the new responsibilities." Rachel opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears she was trying to hold back. "Sir, She swallowed hard. "May I ask why you're doing this?" Marcus thought about the answer. He could talk about professional efficiency, about needing administrative help, about trusting her. All of that would be true. But the most honest answer was another. "Because for 3 years you have worked here impeccably, and I never genuinely cared about your life. That makes me realize I've been a fair boss but not a good human being. I want to change that." Rachel finally let the tears flow. "You have always been fair to me. You never disrespected me, always paid on time, always treated me politely. That is already much more than many people have. But you deserve more than the minimum, Rachel. Everyone does." In that moment, Marcus felt he was on the right path. He didn't know how yet, but he was sure that his life and Rachel's were about to change completely. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot, as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the following days, Marcus observed a gradual transformation in Rachel. She came to work with a different energy, more confident, more engaged. When he mentioned the interviews for the new positions, she made smart suggestions and demonstrated an understanding of the house that went far beyond simple cleaning. But Marcus also noticed that, despite the joy over the new job, something was worrying Rachel. She seemed distracted at times, and on several occasions he caught her looking at her phone with a tense expression. On Thursday of that week, Marcus decided to address the matter directly. "Rachel, you seem worried about something. Is everything all right with your daughter?" Rachel hesitated, clearly torn between the desire to share her concerns and the habit of keeping her personal life private. It's about her school. They're saying that Emily needs special support, but—" she paused. But that kind of therapy is expensive. Even with the raise you gave me, I still don't know if I'll be able to afford it." Marcus felt his heart race. Finally, Rachel was opening up about her real difficulties. What kind of therapy does she need? "Emily has trouble concentrating in school. The teacher says she's smart, but she gets distracted very easily. They recommended an evaluation with an educational psychologist, and then regular sessions." Marcus thought about the observations he had made about Emily. A happy, creative, affectionate child. Concentration problems were something that could be easily resolved with the right support. "How much does this therapy cost?" Rachel mentioned a figure that, to Marcus, was equivalent to what he spent on a single meal at his favorite restaurants. But for her it represented almost half of her current salary, even after the raise. "Rachel, you know the company has a health plan, right?" "Yes, but I know it doesn't cover that kind of treatment. What if we add your daughter as a dependent on the plan and at the same time negotiate with the provider to include coverage for educational psychology? I'm a long-time client. I'm sure they'll make that concession." Rachel stared at him with an expression of absolute surprise. "Mr. Thompson, that would be too much. I can't accept." "Why not?" Because it's not normal. Bosses don't do that for employees." Marcus felt a pang of sadness, realizing how low Rachel's expectations were about how she should be treated. "Maybe it's not normal, but it should be. Emily is your daughter. You are a valuable employee, and an intelligent child deserves to have every opportunity to develop her potential. But what if I can't meet expectations? What if after all this I'm not good enough in the new role?" Marcus realized Rachel's insecurity went far beyond financial issues. She had internalized so much time of hardship that she was afraid to accept opportunities that seemed too good to be true. "Rachel, you've worked here for 2 years. At any point during that time did I criticize you? Complain about your work? Show dissatisfaction with anything you did? No. Then why do you think that would change now? The only difference is that your responsibilities will expand into areas where you already show a natural competence." Rachel was silent for a few minutes, clearly fighting an internal battle. Can I think about this until tomorrow?" "Of course, but Rachel, can I ask a personal question?" She nodded. "Why is it so hard for you to accept help, even when it's clearly deserved and would benefit not only you, but also Emily?" Rachel looked down and took a long time to answer. "Because my life experience has taught me that when things seem too good to be true, they usually are. And because I've accepted help before and been let down." "Do you want to tell me about that?" Rachel hesitated, but then began to speak in a low, careful voice. "When Emily was a baby, I worked for a wealthy family in Bel Air. They seemed very interested in helping me, offered housing, daycare for Emily, a good salary. But after a few months, I found out all the help came with expectations that had nothing to do with housekeeping." Marcus felt anger and disgust at the same time. He was beginning to understand why Rachel was so cautious. "I'm sorry you went through that. I left there in the middle of the night without references, without any savings, with a baby in my arms. I spent months living with an aunt in a tiny room before I could get back on my feet. Since then, I prefer to live with little but with dignity." Marcus understood that winning Rachel's complete trust would require more than words. She needed to see concrete proof that he was different from the other bosses she had known. "Rachel, I understand your caution, and I want you to know that any help I offer will always be transparent, with no hidden expectations, and with formal contracts that protect your rights. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you can leave without any problem." You would put that in writing?" "Absolutely. In fact, I think we should have done that from the start. I'll prepare a formal employment contract specifying your new duties, salary, benefits, and also your guarantees as an employee." For the first time since they had begun talking, Rachel smiled with genuine relief. Then I accept. I accept the promotion and the help with Emily." Marcus felt a deep satisfaction. Not just because he had managed to help Rachel, but because for the first time in years he felt useful beyond his business. "Great. We'll arrange everything starting Monday. And Rachel?" "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me." That weekend, Marcus did something he hadn't done in a long time. He went for a walk in the neighborhood where he lived, observing the people, the families, the children playing in the parks. He thought of Emily and wondered what it would be like to see her thriving with the proper support. On Sunday afternoon, he surprised himself by driving to Hope Heights. He had no specific plans, just curiosity to get to know the neighborhood where Rachel and Emily lived better. It was a sunny Sunday and the streets were full of life. Children played on the sidewalk, families chatted in their doorways. There was an improvised soccer field where young people were playing ball. Marcus parked his car in a small square and got out to walk. The difference between that environment and his neighborhood was enormous, but there was something there that he had lost, a sense of community, neighbors who knew each other, children playing freely in the street. That's when he saw Emily. She was at the playground in the square, playing alone on the slide. Rachel was sitting on a nearby bench, reading something that looked like a study book. The two were dressed simply but carefully, and Marcus noticed that Rachel had painted her nails and styled her hair in a special way. Marcus watched from a distance, unnoticed. Emily was a clearly intelligent and imaginative child. She had transformed the playground into some kind of theater, creating different voices for imaginary characters while she played. At one point, other children approached to play, and Marcus watched as Emily tried to include them in her imaginative play. Not all the children understood or showed interest, but Emily persisted, trying different approaches to engage her peers. Marcus realized that this might be the root of Emily's concentration problems at school. She had a very active imagination and probably got bored with highly structured or repetitive activities. Rachel looked up from her book and watched her daughter playing. Marcus saw on her face a mixture of pride and worry. Pride for Emily's creativity and sociability, worry for the difficulties this might be causing in the school environment. Marcus decided to approach, but casually, as if it were just a coincidence. "Rachel, what a surprise to find you here." Rachel looked up and for a moment seemed startled, but then smiled. "Mr. Thompson, what brings you here?" "I was just out for a walk, getting to know the city. It's a very nice neighborhood, full of life." Emily heard the conversation and came running toward them. "Mom, who is this man?" "Emily, this is Mr. Thompson, where Mommy works." Emily stared at Marcus with the typical curiosity of children, without any shyness. "Do you live in a big house?" "Mommy said she cleans a very big house." Marcus laughed at Emily's sincerity. "It's true, it's a big house. But sometimes big houses get very empty and quiet." "Why? You don't have kids to make noise?" Emily's innocent question touched Marcus in an unexpected way. "No, I don't have kids." "What a shame. Kids are good for making a house more fun." Rachel turned red with embarrassment. "Emily, what kind of way is that to speak?" "Don't worry, Rachel, she's right. Emily, can I ask what you were playing over there on the slide?" Emily's eyes lit up. "I was making up a story about a princess who lived in a castle that was actually a spaceship. Want to hear it?" "I'd love to." For the next 15 minutes, Marcus listened as Emily told a completely wild and creative story, full of unlikely twists and funny characters. Her imagination was truly extraordinary. When Emily finished the story, Marcus applauded genuinely. "That was one of the best stories I've ever heard. You have an incredible talent for making things up." "Thank you. The lady at school says I make up too many things, and that I have to pay more attention in class." Marcus looked at Rachel, who was clearly embarrassed. "Emily, sometimes very creative people have a hard time concentrating on things that aren't as interesting as their own ideas. But that's not a flaw, it's a gift you just need to learn to balance." "How?" "Well, there are special people who help creative kids like you learn that balance, and coincidentally your mom and I were talking about it this week." Emily looked at Rachel expectantly. "Mommy, is it true?" "It's true, my dear. Mr. Thompson is helping us find someone who can teach you some things." "What kind of things?" Marcus knelt down to be at Emily's eye level. "Things like using all that amazing creativity you have to do well in school too, and maybe even discovering other ways to tell your stories." "Like how?" "Well, you could write your stories, draw them, put on little plays, who knows, maybe even study to one day work creating stories for other people." Emily's eyes shone with an intensity Marcus had never seen. "I can really do that when I grow up." "Of course you can. There are people who work creating stories for books, movies, TV shows, and you already show a natural talent for it." Emily jumped for joy and hugged Marcus, catching him completely by surprise. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. You're really nice." Marcus felt his eyes well up as he returned the girl's hug. It had been so long since he'd received a spontaneous show of affection that he'd forgotten how it warmed the heart. Rachel watched the scene with a touched and grateful expression. "Emily, let Mr. Thompson breathe," she said, laughing. "It's okay," said Marcus. gently releasing Emily from the hug. "That was one of the best hugs I've gotten in a long time." Marcus spent a few more minutes talking with the two of them in the park. He learned a little more about Emily's personality, her favorite games, her childhood dreams, and he observed how Rachel interacted with her daughter, always present, always encouraging, always showing unconditional love. When he said goodbye to leave, Marcus carried with him a feeling of wholeness he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since Jennifer left, he felt part of something bigger than his business and his loneliness. On the way home, Marcus thought about how that casual meeting in the park had changed his perspective on his own life. Emily and Rachel had given him something precious, the reminder that happiness is often in the simple things, in genuine relationships, in the ability to make a difference in other people's lives. That night, Marcus made a decision he considered the most important since he decided to help Rachel. He was going to become more closely involved in Emily's development, not just funding the psychopedagogical support, but actively participating in the process when possible. Marcus also decided it was time to rethink his own life. The solitude he had chosen after Jennifer left no longer served him. There were people who could benefit from his presence, and he could benefit from theirs. On Monday, Marcus arrived at the office with renewed energy. He had a list of tasks related to Rachel's new job, the benefits for Emily, and also some ideas about how to make his home a more welcoming environment for possible future visits. When Rachel arrived for work, Marcus greeted her with a genuine smile. "Good morning, Rachel. Ready to start your new role?" "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. I'm nervous but excited." Nervousness is normal. And yesterday at the park, I had the confirmation that I made the right decision. Emily is an exceptional child, and you are an extraordinary mother. You both deserve every opportunity I can provide." Rachel smiled, but Marcus noticed there was still reservation in her expression. "Mr. Thompson, may I ask a question?" "Of course. Why are you doing all this? Not that I'm not grateful, but it's so much generosity that sometimes I worry if there's something I don't understand." Marcus thought carefully before answering. "Rachel, 3 years ago I lost my wife. Since then, my life has been work and solitude. Yesterday, when Emily hugged me at the park, I remembered how good it feels to be needed by someone. Not in a professional or financial way, but in a human way. Oh, you and Emily gave me a gift without knowing it, the reminder that my life can have purpose beyond money. Helping you helps me too. It's a mutual benefit." Rachel nodded, seeming to finally understand that Marcus's motivation was genuine. "Then let's start this new phase. What do I need to know about the new responsibilities?" During the following weeks, Marcus watched Rachel blossom in her new role. She demonstrated natural administrative skills, ease in dealing with suppliers, and an organizational ability that completely transformed the efficiency of the household. More importantly, Marcus noticed that Rachel's self-esteem was strengthening. She spoke with more confidence, offered suggestions for improvements, and gradually abandoned the defensive posture she had maintained since she started working for him. Emily also began her psychopedagogical support, and the first reports were extremely positive. The professional confirmed that the girl had above-average intelligence and that the concentration problems were a result of boredom with insufficiently stimulating activities. A month after the change, Marcus decided to do something he hadn't done in years: organize a small party at his home. Nothing extravagant, just a weekend barbecue for a few close friends, and for the first time, he included Rachel and Emily in the invitation. "Mr. Thompson, I really appreciate the invitation, but I don't think it would be appropriate," said Rachel when he mentioned the party. "Why not?" "Because I'm your employee. The other guests might find it strange." "Rachel, anyone who found it strange for you to be in my home wouldn't be welcome here anyway. You are part of this household's routine. Emily has won a special place in my heart, and I would like you both to participate. But Emily might make a mess, run around the house, bother the other guests." Marcus laughed. "Rachel, this house needs the sound of a child. For 3 years, all I've heard is silence and formal conversations. It would be a pleasure to have Emily running around." Rachel hesitated, but Marcus saw that she was torn between the desire to participate and the fear of making a social mistake. "If you're worried about what to wear or how to behave, don't be. It's a casual party, just people I like and who like me. You'll feel comfortable, I guarantee it. Okay, but if at any point you think it's not working, just tell us and we'll leave, no problem. Deal. But I'm sure it will be perfect. On the day of the party, Saturday, Marcus was more anxious than he had imagined. He had invited only 6 people: his accountant, who had become a friend over the years, 2 couples he knew from college, and Rachel with Emily. Rachel arrived at 2 o'clock sharp, as agreed. She was dressed simply but elegantly, and Emily wore a floral dress that made her look like a doll. "You both look beautiful," said Marcus as he welcomed them. "Thank you, I hope we haven't overdone it or been too plain." "It's perfect. Emily, are you ready to see the garden of the house where your mum works?" Emily nodded enthusiastically. Marcus had prepared some special activities for her: a table with drawing materials in the garden, some games suitable for her age, and even a small inflatable pool he had bought especially for the occasion. When the other guests arrived, Marcus introduced Rachel simply as a very special friend, and Emily as her daughter, who is teaching an old man like me how to have fun again. Marcus watched the interactions closely throughout the afternoon. Rachel talked naturally with the other guests, showing intelligence and good humor that impressed everyone. Emily quickly won over the adults with her charming personality and her creative stories. At one point, Marcus overheard a conversation between Rachel and Rebecca, the wife of one of his college friends. "Rachel, where do you work?" asked Rebecca. "I work for Marcus, coordinating his household." "How interesting. You must have a lot of work. That house is huge." "It is big, but it's work I really enjoy. And Marcus is an exceptional employer." Marcus was touched by the way Rachel spoke of him, without embarrassment or subservience, but with genuine appreciation. Emily spent the afternoon playing among the adults, showing her drawings, telling stories, and asking curious questions of everyone. At no point did she seem out of place or uncomfortable. The most memorable moment of the afternoon happened when Emily approached Marcus while he was talking with his friends. "Uncle Marcus, can I interrupt?" Marcus was surprised by how she addressed him, but liked it immediately. "Of course, Emily. What do you need?" "I drew something for you, to thank you for helping me and Mommy." Emily handed Marcus a drawing made with crayons. It depicted 3 people holding hands in front of a large house. The figure in the middle was clearly him, flanked by 2 smaller figures representing her and Rachel. "This is the most beautiful drawing I've ever received," said Marcus, genuinely moved. "Really? Really? Can I frame it and hang it on the living room wall?" "Yes. That way, every time you look at it, you'll remember you have a family now." Emily's innocent remark caused a momentary silence in the group. Marcus felt his eyes well up and knelt down to hug the girl. "Thank you, Emily. You're right. I have a family now." Rachel watched the scene from a distance, her eyes also moist. Marcus realized she understood the meaning of that moment as much as he did. At the end of the afternoon, after all the guests had left, Marcus, Rachel, and Emily stayed in the garden, tidying up from the party. "Mr. Marcus," said Emily, who had adopted a mix of formality and intimacy when addressing him, "can I come here other times to play in the garden?" Marcus looked at Rachel, who nodded discreetly. "Of course you can. In fact, I was thinking if you wouldn't like to come for lunch here on Sundays. The house gets very quiet on weekends." "Really?" asked Emily excitedly. "Really, but only if your mother agrees." Rachel smiled. "I think it would be very good, for all of us." In that moment, Marcus knew his life had changed for good. Emily and Rachel were no longer just employee and dependent. They were family, in the purest and truest sense of the word. In the following months, Sundays at Marcus's house became a tradition. Emily explored every corner of the garden, always discovering new spots for her imaginative games. Rachel helped with lunch, but mostly relaxed in a way Marcus had never seen before. Marcus discovered he had a natural talent for entertaining children. He invented games with Emily, listened to her stories with genuine attention, and gradually became an important father figure in her life. One especially memorable Sunday happened 3 months after the first party. Emily was playing in the garden when she tripped and scraped her knee. Marcus comforted her while Rachel cleaned the wound, and Emily stopped crying to ask a question. "Uncle Marcus, can you be my borrowed dad?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "What do you mean by borrowed dad? My little friend from school has a borrowed dad. Her real daddy lives far away, but the borrowed dad lives with her and her mum and takes care of her like she's his daughter." Marcus looked at Rachel, who was red with embarrassment. "Emily, what kind of question is that?" "Don't worry, Rachel," said Marcus. "It's an honest question. Emily, what does a borrowed dad do?" "Plays with me, helps me with homework, gives me hugs when I'm sad, and makes Mommy smile." Marcus realized Emily had described exactly what he had been doing for the past few months. "Would you like me to be your borrowed dad?" "I'd like that a lot." "Can you?" Marcus looked at Rachel again, who was clearly emotional but trying to maintain her composure. "Emily, that's something your mother and I would have to talk about very carefully. It's an important decision." "But do you want to?" Emily's direct question demanded an honest answer. "Yes, I would very much like to be your borrowed dad." Emily celebrated as if she had received the best gift in the world. Rachel approached Marcus, while Emily went back to playing. "Marcus, I don't know what to say." She shouldn't have asked that question. "Why not? It was the most important question anyone has asked me in years. But it would completely change our relationship, our dynamic. I don't know if it would be appropriate." Marcus realized the moment had come for a conversation he had been avoiding for months. "Rachel, can I be completely honest with you?" "Of course. In the past few months, the two of you have become the most important people in my life. Emily gave me back the joy I thought I had lost forever, and you made me remember it's possible to trust someone again." Rachel fell silent, clearly moved but still cautious. "I'm not talking about drastic changes or rushed decisions," continued Marcus. "I'm talking about officially recognizing what has already happened. You are my chosen family, and I would like to be your chosen family." What would that mean in practice? It would mean Emily would have a present father, you would have a partner who supports you in every decision about her, and I would have the privilege of watching an extraordinary child grow up. Rachel thought for a few minutes before answering. "Marcus, I need to be sure you understand the responsibility this represents. Emily has already grown too attached to you. If something went wrong, she would suffer a lot." "Rachel, look into my eyes. Do you think I would be capable of deliberately hurting Emily?" "No, not deliberately. But what if you get tired? What if you decide you want a different life? What if you meet someone who won't accept a ready-made package?" Marcus understood that Rachel's fears were based on past experiences of abandonment and disappointment. "Rachel, I'm going to make you a promise, right here and now. Whatever happens to me, Emily will always have my support, my affection, and my protection. Even if our relationship changed for any reason, my commitment to her would be permanent." "You would really do that? Put it in writing?" "I would put it in writing, make it legally official if necessary, and I would make sure Emily knew she has someone she can trust forever." Rachel began to cry, but they were tears of relief and gratitude. "Though, Marcus, are you sure you want to commit to a woman who has a daughter, who comes from a reality completely different from yours, who has no money or social standing? Rachel, are you talking about the woman I admire for her strength, her dignity, her dedication to her daughter, and the way she turned my house into a home?" "Yes, I am absolutely sure." At that moment, Emily came running toward them. "Are you done talking? Can I play with Uncle Marcus now?" Marcus and Rachel laughed at the same time. "Yes, you can, my dear," said Rachel. "Uncle Marcus will play with you whenever you want." "Forever?" Marcus knelt down and hugged Emily. "Forever, Princess. Now I am officially your borrowed dad." Emily shouted with joy and began jumping around the two of them. "Now we are a real family." Marcus looked at Rachel and saw that she had finally lowered all her defenses. For the first time since they had met, she looked at him not as a boss or benefactor, but as the man who had chosen to love her daughter unconditionally. "Yes," said Marcus, hugging them both. "Now we are a real family." 6 months later, Marcus made his union with Rachel official in a small, intimate ceremony. Emily was the flower girl, and in her speech at the end of the party, she said she had finally gotten the best borrowed dad in the whole world. Marcus also began the process of adopting Emily, which was completed on her 7th birthday. The gift she wanted most was to be able to officially call him Dad, not just borrowed dad. Rachel blossomed completely in her new role as wife and partner. She continued coordinating the household, but now as its owner too. Gradually, she took over managing some aspects of Marcus's business, demonstrating entrepreneurial skills that impressed even his business partners. Emily developed spectacularly with the psychoeducational support and stimulating environment Marcus provided. Her concentration problems turned into an ability to focus when the subject interested her, and her creative skills were channeled into productive activities. Marcus discovered that being a father was everything he had ever wanted to be, but never knew how. Emily taught him to see the world through a child's eyes again, to value simple moments, and to find joy in small daily achievements. Marcus's transformation was noticed by everyone who knew him. Friends commented on how he seemed happier, more relaxed, more human. In business, he became a more empathetic leader, more attentive to his employees' needs. Marcus also created a scholarship program for employees' children, inspired by his experience with Emily. The program included psychoeducational support, extracurricular activities, and comprehensive support for families. 2 years after their union, Rachel became pregnant. Emily was overjoyed at the news that she would have a little brother or sister. Marcus experienced a joy he didn't know was possible, the anticipation of watching a child grow from birth. During the pregnancy, Marcus was the most dedicated husband and father one could imagine. He attended every doctor's appointment, participated in every decision, and prepared intensively for biological fatherhood, even though he had already been a father at heart for 2 years. When the baby was born, a boy they named Nathan, Emily proudly took on the role of big sister. Marcus cried as he held his son for the first time, remembering how his life had completely changed since the day he decided to follow Rachel home. The family grew, but the essence remained the same: unconditional love, mutual support, and genuine joy in being together. Marcus often joked that following Rachel that rainy afternoon was the best decision he had ever made in his entire life. Emily, now 9 years old, sometimes asked Marcus if he remembered the time when he lived alone in the big house. He always answered that he did, but that it seemed like another life, of another person. "Were you sad back then?" Emily asked one day. "I was sad, but I didn't know it. I thought that was just how adult life worked. And now? Now I know that adult life can be fun, especially when you have a daughter who makes up the craziest stories in the world, and a little son who smiles every time he sees me." Emily smiled and hugged Marcus. "Daddy, I have an important question." "Go ahead, princess. When I grow up and have my own children, can you be their borrowed grandpa too?" Marcus laughed and hugged her tighter. "Emily, I will be a borrowed grandpa, a real grandpa, a pretend grandpa, any kind of grandpa you want me to be." "Promise?" "Promise." Rachel watched the conversation from the kitchen, where she was preparing dinner with Nathan in her arms. She smiled, remembering the fearful and distrustful woman she was years ago, when she carried heavy bags in the rain and feared any kindness was too good to be true. Marcus had kept every promise he made. Emily had a dedicated father, she had a partner who loved and respected her, and Nathan would grow up in an environment of security and affection she never imagined possible. That night, after putting the children to bed, Marcus and Rachel talked on the porch of the house, as they did every night. "Marcus, can I confess something?" said Rachel. "Of course. That first day you offered me a raise, I thought you had found out something about me and were testing me." "What kind of thing?" "I don't know. Maybe that I took something or that I wasn't trustworthy. I was so used to distrust that genuine kindness seemed suspicious to me." Marcus took Rachel's hand. "And now? Now I understand that there are good people in the world. People who help because they want to help, who love because they want to love. and who build families not just by biology, but by choice. Rachel, you know you saved me as much as I saved you, right? How so? I was becoming a bitter, isolated person, focused only on making money. Emily and you reminded me that life has meaning beyond professional success. They were silent for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the night and savoring the peace of a united family. Marcus, said Rachel, what do you think would have happened if you hadn't followed me that day? Marcus thought carefully. I think we would have continued in our professional routine. You would have continued struggling alone with Emily's difficulties, and I would have continued living an empty but comfortable life. And Emily? Emily would probably overcome her school difficulties because she's a strong child, but maybe she wouldn't discover her full potential. And I would miss the chance to be the father of the most special child in the world. Rachel smiled. So, it was fate. I don't know if it was fate, but it was the best coincidence of my life. They finished the conversation with their usual ritual, checking if the children were well covered, turning off the house lights and lying down together in the bed that was now both of theirs. Marcus often fell asleep, thinking about how a simple impulse, following his housekeeper out of curiosity, had completely transformed his existence. From a rich but lonely man, he had become a rich and fulfilled man. Emily had grown and become a confident and creative preteen. Her concentration difficulties had transformed into an ability for intense focus when something interested her. She wrote elaborate stories, drew with impressive technique for her age, and dreamed of studying arts or literature when she went to university. Nathan, now 2 years old, was a cheerful child who loved both his sister and his father. Marcus discovered that being the father of a baby was even more transformative than he had imagined. Every smile, every new word, every small developmental milestone moved him deeply. The family dynamic that was established was one of genuine love, but also of shared responsibilities. Emily helped take care of Nathan. Rachel perfectly balanced her role as mother and business partner, and Marcus had learned to be simultaneously a father, husband, and business leader. Marcus had also changed his approach to business. Inspired by the experience with his own family, he implemented support policies for employees who had children, on-site daycare, flexible schedules for parents, extended leave, and an education program that ensured no employee's child was left without access to quality education. Marcus's personal transformation even influenced his way of doing business. He began prioritizing ethical partnerships, investing in companies with social responsibility, and using his wealth to create positive impact in society. Emily often asked Marcus to tell the story of how they became a family. She always listened with the same interest, as if it were a real fairy tale. "Daddy, do you think if you hadn't followed Mommy, the three of us would never have met?" she asked once. "It's possible. Maybe you would have kept working here, but only professionally. That would be so sad. Nathan wouldn't even exist." "That's true. Nathan exists because your mother and I fell in love." "And why did you fall in love?" Marcus always liked this part of the story. "Because your mother is the strongest, most dedicated, and most caring woman I've ever known, and you taught me that I could be a father even without being a biological father." "And me? Why do you love me?" "Emily, we love you because you are you. Smart, creative, caring, funny, and full of life. You taught us that family isn't just who you're born with, but who chooses to stay together." Emily was always satisfied with that explanation, but Marcus knew that behind the question was a typical anxiety of children who experienced instability in early childhood, the need to confirm that the love was permanent and unconditional. Marcus made a point of constantly reaffirming that love, not only through words, but through constant presence, genuine interest in her activities, and active participation in her education and development. When Emily turned 10, Marcus organized a special party for her. Not just a common birthday party, but a celebration of chosen family, where each guest represented someone important in the journey that had brought them there. Present were the educational psychologist, who had helped Emily overcome her initial difficulties, the teacher who first recognized her creative talent, Marcus's friends who witnessed his transformation, and even some of Rachel's former co-workers from the earlier time who could see how her life had changed. During the party, Marcus gave an emotional speech. 5 years ago, I was a man who had everything from a material standpoint, but nothing from an emotional one. Emily and Rachel taught me that family is built every day through small acts of love, patience, and mutual dedication. Emily, when you ask me if you can be my daughter forever, I want you to know the question should be the other way around. Will you allow me to be your father forever? Because that is the greatest privilege of my life. Emily, now a pre-teen but still young enough for public displays of affection, climbed onto the makeshift stage and hugged Marcus in front of all the guests. Daddy, you can be my dad forever, and when you get old, I'll take care of you like you take care of me now. Emily's innocent promise moved everyone present, but especially Marcus, who realized he had raised a daughter with the values he most admired: loyalty, gratitude, and a sense of family responsibility. Nathan, now able to speak a few words, also wanted to join the speech. Marcus picked him up, and the boy shouted "Daddy" to the whole party, prompting laughter and applause. In that moment, Marcus was absolutely certain his life was complete. Not just because he had a family he loved, but because he had become the best version of himself through the love he received and gave. Rachel watched the whole scene with a maternal pride that extended not only to the children, but also to her husband. Marcus had become an exceptional father, a dedicated husband, and a man who used his privileged position to do good. She often remembered the fearful woman she was when carrying bags in the rain, worried only about immediate survival. The transformation had not been just in external circumstances, but in self-esteem, confidence, and the ability to dream of a better future. That night, after the party, the family gathered in the living room to open Emily's presents. Among toys and clothes, Marcus gave her a special gift, a hand-bound diary with a dedication on the first page. To Emily, the girl who taught me that made-up stories can become reality when there is enough love to sustain them. Use this diary to write your own stories, but always remember that you are the protagonist of the most beautiful story I have ever had the privilege of helping to write. With infinite love, Dad. Emily read the dedication and hugged the diary to her chest. Daddy, I'm going to write our whole story in this diary, from the first day you came to live with us. Actually, you came to live with me, laughed Marcus. No, Daddy. You came to live with us. Before you lived in a house, now you live in a home. Emily's profound observation touched Marcus in an unexpected way. At 10 years old, she already understood the difference between physical space and emotional environment. You're right, Princess. Before I had a house, now I have a home. 2 weeks after the party, Emily began writing in the diary Marcus had given her. Her first entries were about childhood memories, but they gradually evolved into reflections on family, love, and gratitude. Marcus accidentally discovered one of the entries when Emily left the diary open on the kitchen table. The page said, "Today I asked Mommy what our life was like before Daddy Marcus. She said it was harder, but that we always had love for each other. I don't remember it being hard, but I remember being scared sometimes. Now I'm never afraid, because I know I have 2 people who will protect me forever. Nathan is lucky because he was born with all of that. Sometimes I wonder if there are other kids who need a borrowed dad like I did. I want to help those kids when I grow up." Marcus was deeply moved reading those words. Emily hadn't just found safety and happiness, but she was already showing a desire to extend that happiness to other children going through similar situations. That night, Marcus talked to Rachel about Emily's note. "She has an impressive social conscience for a 10-year-old, said Rachel. "I think it's the result of having gone through difficulties in early childhood. She understands that not all children have the luck she has now. Marcus, have you thought about expanding the company's scholarship program? Maybe creating something specific for children who need borrowed parents?" Rachel's suggestion planted a seed in Marcus's mind. He began researching mentorship programs for children, sponsorship initiatives, and ways to connect willing adults with children who needed support. 3 months later, Marcus launched the Extended Family Program, an initiative that connected executives from his company with single-parent families or children in socially vulnerable situations. The program included educational mentorship, emotional support, and regular recreational activities. Emily was invited to be the program's child ambassador, a role she accepted with seriousness and enthusiasm. She participated in planning meetings, gave suggestions about activities the kids would like, and often talked with new participants about her own experience. The program was an immediate success. Within 6 months, more than 50 children were being supported by company volunteers, and the results were measurable: improved school performance, increased self-esteem, and strengthened family bonds. Marcus discovered that leading this initiative gave him a professional satisfaction he had never experienced. Seeing other children benefit from the same kind of support he had given Emily multiplied his sense of purpose. Emily also benefited enormously from her role in the program. Helping other children developed her empathy, her leadership skills, and her self-confidence. She became an even more mature and socially aware girl. In one of the program meetings, Emily gave a presentation to the adult volunteers. When you become a borrowed parent to a child, you're going to receive more than you give. My dad Marcus teaches me things every day, but I teach him things too. Family is like that. Everyone looks after everyone. Emily's presentation was met with enthusiastic applause and confirmed for Marcus that his daughter had completely internalized the values of reciprocity, gratitude, and social responsibility he was trying to impart. The extended family program grew so much that other companies began seeking out Marcus to implement similar initiatives. He became a national reference in corporate social responsibility, but he always made it clear that his motivation was personal, not professional. "Everything I do in this area is inspired by my daughter Emily," he would say in interviews. "She taught me that receiving unconditional love generates a natural desire to offer it to other people." Emily read these interviews with pride, but also with the precocious wisdom of someone who understands that her role in transforming Marcus had been unconscious and natural. "Daddy," she said one day, "you say I taught you things, but I was just a kid being a kid. You were the one who chose to learn." Emily's observation struck Marcus with its depth. At 11 years old, she already understood that personal transformation is always an individual choice, even when influenced by external factors. "Emily, you're right, but sometimes people need encouragement to make good choices. You and your mother were my encouragement. And now Nathan and I are your daily reminders." Marcus laughed at how Emily had summarized their family dynamic. "Exactly. You are my daily reminders that it's worth being a good person." Nathan, now 3 years old and very talkative, also participated in these family conversations, even if he didn't always fully understand the context. "Daddy good," he would say, hugging Marcus. "Nathan good too, Emily good, Mommy good," he would add, making sure the whole family was included in his declaration of love. Nathan's simplicity contrasted with Emily's growing sophistication, but Marcus loved both styles equally. Nathan kept him connected to the purity of early childhood, while Emily challenged him intellectually and emotionally. When Emily turned 12, she made a specific request for her birthday party. "Dad, instead of gifts, can I ask the guests to donate money to the extended family program?" Marcus was proud, but wanted to make sure Emily was making this choice for the right reasons. "Emily, are you sure you don't want presents? It's your birthday. You deserve to be celebrated." "Dad, every day of my life is a celebration. I have everything I need. But there are children who need help, and my birthday can be a way to help them." Emily's maturity at 12 constantly impressed Marcus. She had developed a social conscience that many adults never achieve, yet without losing the joy and spontaneity typical of her age. Emily's birthday party became an extremely successful fundraiser. The guests, inspired by the birthday girl's generosity, donated far more than Marcus had imagined possible. With the money raised, Emily suggested creating a mobile library that would visit underserved communities, offering not just books, but also reading activities and storytelling. "The kids in the program always say they like it when I tell them stories," explained Emily. "So I thought we could bring stories to children in places we haven't reached yet." Emily's idea was implemented 6 months later. The mobile library, named Stories That Transform, visited public schools, community centers, and even public parks, always with Emily as one of the volunteer storytellers. Marcus accompanied these activities whenever possible and observed how Emily naturally connected with children of different ages and social backgrounds. She had inherited Rachel's natural empathy, but had also developed a leadership ability that was uniquely her own. During one of the mobile library visits, Marcus witnessed a scene that moved him deeply. Emily was telling a story to a group of young children when one of them, a girl of about 6, approached her after the activity. "Miss, can you be my borrowed sister?" asked the girl. Emily looked at Marcus, who was watching from a distance, and then knelt to talk to the child. "What would being your borrowed sister be like? You would come visit me sometimes, play with me and tell me stories when I'm sad." Emily thought for a moment and then replied, "You know what I can do? I can ask my dad to talk to your mum, and maybe you can join a program where many grown-ups are borrowed parents for children like you. Then you'd have not just a borrowed sister, but a whole borrowed family." Emily's response demonstrated emotional maturity and awareness of available resources. She had understood that her role wasn't to take on individual responsibilities, but to facilitate systemic connections. Marcus approached and spoke with the girl's mother, who was watching the activity. He discovered she was a single mother, worked as a cleaner, and was interested in any kind of support that could benefit her daughter. 2 weeks later, the girl was integrated into the extended family program with an adult mentor who committed to meeting with her regularly. Emily became a sort of big sister for several children in the program, a role she performed with natural ease and joy. Emily's experience with the program was developing skills in her that Marcus knew would be valuable for a lifetime: empathy, leadership, communication, and a sense of social responsibility. Rachel watched Emily's growth with a mixture of maternal pride and admiration. The girl who was shy and insecure at school at 6 years old had become a confident, articulate, and socially conscious preteen. "Marcus," Rachel said one night, "sometimes I worry if we're putting too much responsibility on Emily's shoulders." "Why do you think that?" "She participates in so many social activities, worries so much about other children. Does she have enough time to just be a normal kid?" Marcus pondered Rachel's concern. It was important to balance the development of Emily's social awareness with her need to live a full childhood. "You're right. Let's talk to her and make sure she's not overloading herself." The goal was never to turn her into a mini-adult. In the conversation with Emily, Marcus and Rachel discovered that she was genuinely happy with her activities, but that she sometimes felt pressure to be perfect all the time. "Emily, you know you can make mistakes, have bad days, and even be selfish sometimes, right?" said Rachel. "I know, but I don't want to disappoint you. You've done so much for me that I want to repay you by being the best daughter possible." Marcus understood that Emily had developed an unhealthy internal pressure to reciprocate. "Emily, you don't need to repay anything. Love between family doesn't work like a business transaction. We love you because you are you, not for what you do or don't do. Even if I got a bad grade in school? Even then. Of course we'll help you improve, but our love doesn't change. Even if I fought with Nathan. Siblings fight sometimes, it's part of life. Even if I didn't want to participate in the company program anymore?" Marcus realized this was the most important question. "Emily, do you participate in the program because you want to, or because you think you should?" "At first I participated because I wanted to. Now sometimes I continue because I think people expect it of me." Emily's honesty opened an important conversation about expectations, social pressures, and the difference between voluntary and obligatory social responsibility. Marcus decided that Emily should take a break from the program's activities so she could genuinely assess what she wanted to do. "Emily, how about you take a vacation from all the program's activities? You can spend a few months doing only things you feel like doing, without any pressure." "Can I really?" "Of course, and after that period, if you want to come back, come back. If you want to do other things, do other things. If you want to do nothing but study and play, that's also great." Emily seemed relieved for the first time in months. "Thank you, Dad. I like helping other kids, but sometimes I just want to be a kid too." "Then that's exactly what you'll do for the next few months. Be a kid." Over the following 3 months, Emily dedicated herself to typical childhood activities. She played more with friends from school, watched silly movies, spent hours on her phone, and even had a few teenage tantrums that Marcus and Rachel received with relief. Nathan took the opportunity to get more attention from his sister, who now had more time to play with him and teach him new games. Marcus observed that Emily seemed more relaxed, more spontaneous, and ironically, more emotionally mature. The break from social responsibilities had allowed her to regain the balance between altruism and self-care. At the end of the vacation period, Emily sought Marcus for a conversation. "Daddy, I want to go back to participating in the program, but in a different way." "How so?" "I want to participate less. But when I do participate, I want to give it my best. Instead of being in every activity, I want to choose some that I really love doing." Emily's proposal demonstrated impressive maturity and self-awareness for a 12-year-old girl. "Which activities would you choose?" "I want to continue with the mobile library because I love telling stories, and I want to keep talking to new children who enter the program because I remember what it was like to be in their shoes, but I want to stop with the administrative meetings and the presentations for adults." Marcus found Emily's decision perfectly sensible. "Done. You will only participate in the activities you genuinely enjoy, with no obligation beyond your own will." Emily smiled and hugged Marcus. "Thank you for letting me discover what kind of help I want to give. Emily, that was one of the most important lessons you taught me, that even altruism needs to be authentic to be sustainable." Emily's return to the program with the new approach was even more effective than her previous participation. She was genuinely enthusiastic about the chosen activities, and her joy was contagious to both the children served and the other volunteers. Marcus learned, through Emily's experience, that balancing social responsibility with personal well-being was a skill he himself needed to develop better. Inspired by his daughter, he also re-evaluated his own activities and delegated some responsibilities to focus on what truly motivated him. Rachel, watching father and daughter learn together about healthy boundaries and authentic choices, realized how the family had become an environment of mutual growth, where each member positively influenced the other's development. Nathan, now 4 years old, also began to show interest in the family activities related to the program. He liked to help Emily prepare material for the storytelling sessions, even if his help consisted mainly of scribbled drawings that he insisted were very important. Marcus watched with tenderness as Nathan admired his older sister, trying to imitate her in small gestures of generosity, offering toys to other children at the park, trying to comfort classmates who cried at school, always repeating phrases he heard Emily say. The dynamic between the siblings was developing healthily. Emily naturally assumed the role of a caring mentor, while Nathan brought lightness and spontaneity to Emily's sometimes too serious personality. One Sunday afternoon, Marcus witnessed a conversation between the siblings that moved him deeply. Nathan was frustrated because he couldn't draw something pretty like Emily's drawings, and he started to cry. "Nathan," said Emily, sitting next to him, "you know I also drew ugly pictures when I was your age." "You did?" asked Nathan, stopping his crying. "I did. Want to see?" Emily went to get her old diaries and showed Nathan some drawings she had made when she was 4. They were clearly childish, but she presented them with affection, not shame. "Look, this one is a cat, but it looks like a potato with ears. And this is a car, but it looks like a rectangle with circles." Nathan laughed at Emily's old drawings. "You draw better now." "That's because I practiced a lot. And you know what else? Daddy Marcus kept all my ugly drawings in a special folder because he said they tell the story of how I learned." Nathan became interested. "Will he keep my drawings too?" "Yes, he will. And when you're big like me, you'll laugh at your drawings from today, but you'll also be proud of them." "Why?" "Because they'll show that you never gave up trying." Marcus, who was listening to the conversation from the kitchen, felt his eyes well up. Emily had perfectly internalized the lesson that growth is a process, not a demand for immediate perfection. That night, Marcus talked with Rachel about how Emily had become an exceptional big sister. "She has an emotional wisdom that impresses me," said Rachel. "I think it's the result of having experienced both instability and security. She understands both sides of the childhood experience. And Nathan is benefiting so much from it. He has a sister who understands him, but also a model of resilience and generosity. Marcus agreed. The family had found a balance where each member contributed to the other's well-being, but without sacrificing their own individuality. A few months later, Emily made an announcement during family dinner. "Daddy, Mommy, I've decided what I want to study when I grow up." "What?" asked Marcus and Rachel simultaneously. "I want to study child psychology. I want to work helping children who go through difficult situations like I did." Marcus felt pride and admiration for Emily's decision. At 13, she had identified a vocation that perfectly combined her natural abilities with her life experience. "Emily, are you sure? It's a field that requires a lot of study and dedication." "I'm sure. I want to understand how to help children not just with affection, but with scientific knowledge too. I want to be like the aunt who helped me when I had problems at school, but for many children." Rachel smiled, remembering the educational psychologist who had been fundamental in Emily's educational transformation. "It's a beautiful profession, my daughter, and you have all the qualities needed to be excellent at it." Nathan, who was listening to the conversation, made his own declaration. "I want to help children when I grow up too." "What kind of help do you want to give, Nathan?" asked Marcus. Nathan thought seriously for a few seconds. "I want to give hugs to sad children and play with them to make them happy." Emily laughed and hugged her brother. "Nathan, there are professions where you can do exactly that. You can be an educator, a play therapist, or even a hospital clown." "A hospital clown that exists?" "Yes, it does. They are people who go to hospitals to make sick children laugh and feel better." Nathan was delighted with the idea. "I want to be a hospital clown then." Marcus and Rachel exchanged amused looks. It was premature to take Nathan's professional aspirations seriously at 4 years old, but it was beautiful to see that both children already showed a calling for professions that helped other people. That night, after putting the children to bed, Marcus and Rachel reflected on how they had managed to raise children with such solid values. "Marcus, do you think they inherited this generosity or learned from our example?" asked Rachel. "I think it's a combination. Emily had experiences of vulnerability that made her empathetic. Nathan grew up in an environment where helping others is valued, and they both saw that generosity brings genuine happiness. And us. What have we learned from them?" Marcus thought carefully. "I learned that being a father is less about molding my children and more about discovering who they are and supporting that development. Emily taught me that resilience can breed compassion. Nathan teaches me every day that joy is contagious. Do you regret anything on this journey?" "I only regret taking so long to follow you that rainy afternoon. I wonder how many years of happiness we lost." Rachel smiled and they snuggled on the couch. "We didn't lose anything. We arrived at the right time, in the right way, and we built exactly the family we needed to build." Marcus agreed. The timing had been perfect. He was ready to be a father when he met Emily. Rachel was ready to trust someone, and Emily was at the ideal age to adapt to a new family dynamic. 5 years had passed, and Emily was now 17, about to graduate from high school. Nathan was 9 years old, and was an outgoing and affectionate child who kept the whole family entertained with his stories and mischief. Emily had become an exceptional young woman. She got excellent grades in school, was a student leader, maintained her volunteer participation in the extended family program, and had even developed an impressive talent for drawing and creative writing. Marcus often wondered how a child who had faced concentration difficulties at 6 years old had become such a focused and determined teenager. The answer, he knew, lay in the combination of unconditional support, proper encouragement, and opportunities to develop her potential. Emily was preparing for college entrance exams, determined to follow her dream of studying psychology. Marcus and Rachel fully supported her choice, but also encouraged her to consider top universities, even if they were in other cities. "Emily," said Marcus during a conversation about college, "you don't need to limit your options because of the family. If you want to study in New York City, Los Angeles, or even abroad, we will support you. Dad, I would like to stay close to the family during college, not because I feel obligated, but because I like the life we have here. I can always do graduate studies elsewhere." Emily's answer demonstrated maturity and clarity about her priorities. She had learned to balance personal ambition with family bonds. Nathan, in turn, was developing his own distinctive personality. He was a sociable, funny, and naturally charismatic child. At school, he was loved by teachers and classmates and already showed talent for artistic and sports activities. Marcus watched as Nathan navigated childhood with an emotional security that Emily had only gradually achieved. Nathan had never known financial or family insecurity, so his confidence in the world was unshakable. "Dad," Nathan said one afternoon, "can I ask you a question about when you were a kid?" "Of course, son." "Were you happy when you were my age?" Nathan's question took Marcus by surprise. It was a complex question that required an honest answer, but one suitable for a 9-year-old. "Nathan, I had everything a child could want in material terms, but I didn't have the kind of family you have. So I was happy sometimes, but not in the constant way you are. Why didn't you have a family like ours? My parents loved each other, but they worked a lot and didn't have as much time for me as your mom and I have for you and Emily." Nathan thought for a few minutes. "So you learned to be a better dad because you know what it's like not to have a present dad?" Nathan's observation was surprisingly profound. "That's exactly it, Nathan. Sometimes the difficulties we experience as children teach us how to do better when we become adults. So if I become a daddy one day, I'll be a very good daddy because you teach me everything." Marcus felt his heart race at the prospect of Nathan becoming a father someday. "You will be an amazing daddy, Nathan. You already show affection, patience, and generosity with all the children you meet." Nathan smiled, satisfied, and went back to playing. But the conversation left Marcus thinking about how family cycles perpetuate themselves, both positive and negative ones. That night, Marcus talked to Rachel about the conversation with Nathan. "Sometimes I worry if we're not raising the boys in too much of a protected bubble," she said. "Why do you think that?" "They've never faced real difficulties. They don't know what it's like to not have money, to go without, or to deal with serious family conflicts. Does that prepare them for real life?" Marcus pondered Rachel's concern. It was true that Emily and Nathan were growing up in an environment of safety and privilege that neither he nor Rachel had known in childhood. "Rachel, I think our responsibility isn't to create artificial difficulties for them, but to make sure they understand that not everyone has the opportunities they have." "And do you think we're managing to do that?" With Emily, clearly yes. She perfectly understands social differences and is dedicated to helping those who have less. With Nathan, we're still in the process. Maybe it's important for Nathan to have more contact with realities different from ours. Marcus agreed. Nathan needed to understand that his privileged life was an exception, not the rule, and that this brought responsibilities as well as benefits. The following month, Marcus began regularly taking Nathan to the mobile library activities. While Emily told stories, Nathan helped distribute books and interacted with children from socioeconomic backgrounds very different from his own. Initially, Nathan didn't notice the differences. For him, all children were potential playmates. But gradually he began to ask questions about why some children wore patched clothes, why some didn't have proper shoes, why some always seemed hungry. Marcus and Rachel answered Nathan's questions honestly, but in an age-appropriate way, explaining social inequality without causing unnecessary guilt or anxiety. "Nathan," Marcus explained one time, "there are families that don't have as much money as we do. That's not their fault. It's just the situation they were born into or that life brought to them. And why don't we give money to all those families? Nathan, we help some families through the company's program. But there are so many people who need help that one person alone can't solve all the problems. So what can we do? We can do our part, help some people directly, support programs that help many people, and teach other people to help too." Nathan accepted these explanations with the typical naturalness of children, but Marcus noticed he began to show more gratitude for the things he had and more interest in sharing with others. On one of the mobile library visits, Nathan met a boy his age named Tyler, who lived in an underprivileged community. The two became friends immediately, united by a passion for soccer and video games. "Daddy," Nathan said after the activity, "can I invite Tyler to come play at our house?" "Of course, son. But first let's talk to his mother to see if she allows it." The invitation resulted in a very special afternoon, where Tyler visited Marcus's house. The boy was impressed by the size of the house, the pool, and the number of toys Nathan had, but the two played naturally, as if the material differences were irrelevant. Marcus observed how Nathan showed no arrogance about his privileges, but also how Tyler showed no envy or resentment. The children simply enjoyed the opportunity to play together. Rachel prepared a party for the two boys, and Tyler ate as if he hadn't had a full meal in days. Marcus and Rachel exchanged worried looks, understanding that this child likely faced regular food insecurity. Discreetly, Marcus spoke with Tyler's mother when she came to pick him up. He discovered she was a single mother, worked as a house cleaner, and often struggled to feed her son properly. Without causing embarrassment, Marcus offered to include Tyler in his company's scholarship program, which included food assistance, school supplies, and educational support. Tyler's mother gratefully accepted the help. Nathan was happy to learn that Tyler would be part of the program. "Can he come here more often now?" he asked. "Yes, he can. And you can also visit his home to understand how other families live." Nathan's visits to Tyler's home were educational for the whole family. Nathan saw how Tyler and his mother lived in two small rooms, how they improvised creative solutions to problems Nathan had never imagined, and how they maintained joy and family unity despite the difficulties. "Dad," Nathan said after one of the visits, "Tyler is happier than I thought he would be." "Why do you think that?" "Because he and his mom laugh a lot together, even living in a small house. He doesn't need many things to be happy." Nathan's observation showed he was learning important lessons about the relationship between material conditions and happiness. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing, Emily watched Nathan's maturation with approval. She remembered when Marcus and Rachel had worried about gradually exposing her to social responsibility, and she saw that Nathan was going through the same process naturally. "Nathan is learning the same lessons I learned," Emily commented to Marcus, "but in a gentler way because he has always had emotional security. Do you think that's good or bad?" "I think it's different. I learned empathy through the personal experience of hardship. Nathan is learning through observation and education. Both paths can lead to the same result." Marcus was impressed with the maturity of Emily's analysis. At 17, she had a clarity about psychological development that many adults never achieve. The friendship between Nathan and Tyler developed in a healthy way. Nathan learned to value his opportunities more, while Tyler gained access to educational and social resources that opened new horizons for him. Tyler's mother became an employee at Marcus's company, initially as a cleaning assistant, but she quickly demonstrated competencies that allowed her promotion to administrative activities. Marcus discovered she had interrupted her studies to care for Tyler, but she was an intelligent and determined woman who only needed opportunities. A year later, Tyler and his mother had managed to move to a larger home. Tyler was excelling in school with proper educational support, and the friendship between the boys had grown even stronger. Nathan, now 10 years old, had become an even more empathetic and socially aware child. He organized toy drives among his schoolmates, actively participated in the mobile library activities, and often asked to visit children served by the family program. Marcus noticed that Nathan was naturally developing many of the qualities that Emily had needed to consciously work to develop. The difference was that Nathan had grown up in an environment where generosity and social awareness were the norm, not the exception. "Marcus," said Rachel one night, "have you noticed how our children have become people we would have liked to be at their age?" "How so?" "Emily has the strength I wish I'd had at 17, but also the emotional security I never had. Nathan has the generosity you developed in adulthood, but already at 10. Marcus had never thought of it from that perspective, but Rachel was right. Somehow, they had managed to raise children who combined the best of their own personalities with advantages that neither of them had had in childhood. "I think that happens when parents consciously decide to break negative cycles and strengthen positive ones," said Marcus. "And when they have enough resources to do it," added Rachel, always realistic. Marcus agreed. He knew that many of his family's successes were possible due to the financial and social resources he could provide. This motivated him even more to extend these opportunities to other families through his social programs. Emily had been accepted into her first-choice university to study psychology. At 18, she was a confident, intelligent young woman, deeply committed to social causes. Marcus and Rachel were proud not only of her academic achievements, but mainly of the person she had become. In the last month before Emily started college, Marcus organized a family trip to celebrate. They went to a beach house for 2 weeks, time that Marcus considered precious for strengthening family bonds before Emily gained more independence. During the trip, Marcus observed how the family dynamic had evolved. Emily and Nathan had a sibling relationship that was both affectionate and respectful. Rachel had become a completely fulfilled woman, balancing motherhood, marriage, and career harmoniously. He himself felt fully happy in a way he had never imagined possible. On the last night of the trip, the family was gathered on the house's porch, watching the sea. "Dad," said Emily, "can I ask a nostalgic question?" "Of course." "Do you remember what your life was like before us?" Marcus thought carefully. It was a question Emily had asked a few times over the years, always with genuine curiosity. "Yes, I remember. It was a life that was materially comfortable but emotionally empty. I had professional success, but no personal purpose." "And do you miss anything from that time?" "The only thing I miss is the simplicity of having responsibilities only to myself. But that's a very small longing compared to the joy of having you." Nathan, who was listening to the conversation, made his own contribution. "Dad, can you imagine what our family would be like if Mom had never worked in our house?" Nathan's question was hypothetical, but it sparked an interesting reflection. "Nathan, I think your mother and I would have found each other somehow. Maybe in some other context, some other time. People who are destined to form a family end up finding each other." Rachel smiled at Marcus's romantic answer. "Or maybe you two would have remained just a family of two, and I would have remained a lonely person. The important thing is that we found each other when we were all ready to form the family we formed." Emily was satisfied with the answer. "I like to think that our meeting was inevitable, but our family was a choice we all made." Emily's observation perfectly encapsulated the family philosophy they had developed. Love as a conscious choice, not just a spontaneous feeling. Nathan, always practical, asked the question he was really interested in. "If Emily goes to college, are we still going to be the same family?" Marcus and Rachel exchanged looks, understanding this was the real concern behind the nostalgic questions. "Nathan," said Rachel, "Emily will still be our daughter and your sister, even if she lives somewhere else during the week. Family doesn't depend on everyone living in the same house." "And when I go to college too?" "When you go to college, we'll miss you, but we'll still be family. And when you get married and have your own children, our family will grow, not shrink." Nathan seemed reassured by the explanation. Emily graduated high school as the class valedictorian. In her speech, she spoke about resilience, opportunities, and the importance of extending privileges to others through conscious social action. Marcus and Rachel watched the speech with tears in their eyes. The girl they had met at 6 years old, struggling with concentration in school, was now inspiring hundreds of people with her articulation and wisdom. After the ceremony, Marcus hugged Emily. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become," he said. "Dad, I am who I am because you gave me the foundation to become the best version of myself. Now it's my turn to offer that to other people." Emily's response showed she had perfectly internalized the lesson that privileges bring responsibilities, but also that personal growth and social contribution can go hand in hand. Nathan, now 11 and about to start middle school, was developing his own passions and talents. He had discovered an aptitude for music, specifically guitar and singing, and often performed at school and community events. Marcus observed how Nathan used his music to bring joy to others, especially younger children and the elderly. It was another manifestation of the natural generosity he had developed. Emily began college while maintaining the family home base, as she had planned. She studied during the day and continued to participate selectively in the extended family program activities. now with a more academic perspective that complemented her practical experience. The transition went smoothly. Emily gained more independence but maintained strong family ties. Marcus and Rachel gradually adjusted to the new dynamic, discovering they could maintain family intimacy while respecting their daughter's growing autonomy. Nathan enjoyed receiving more individual attention from his parents, but never showed jealousy or resentment toward the praise Emily received for her academic achievements. "Nathan," Marcus asked one day, "do you feel pressured to be as good a student as Emily?" "No, Dad. Emily is good at one thing. I'm good at other things. Everyone has their own talents." Nathan's answer showed healthy self-esteem and an understanding that success can have multiple definitions. Marcus realized he had succeeded in creating a family environment where competition was replaced by mutual support, where each child developed according to their own capabilities and interests. 2 years later, Emily was in her third year of psychology, interning at a clinic serving low-income families. Her supervisors constantly praised her natural empathy, her ability to connect with children and teenagers, and her intuitive understanding of complex family dynamics. Nathan was in his first year of high school, participating in the school choir and organizing musical performances to raise funds for charitable causes. He had discovered that music could be a powerful tool for social mobilization. Marcus and Rachel, now in their 50s, were in their prime personally and professionally. The social programs at Marcus's company had expanded nationally, serving as a model for other corporations interested in effective social responsibility. Rachel had completed a degree in business administration and had officially become the company's director of social responsibility, a position she had informally held for years. She was often invited to give talks on social inclusion and community development. The family had found a harmonious balance between personal life, professional success, and social contribution. Each member found individual fulfillment, but also contributed to the collective well-being. One Sunday afternoon, Marcus was organizing some old documents when he found a photograph Rachel had taken during one of Emily's first visits to the house's garden. In the picture, a 7-year-old Emily proudly showed off a drawing she had made, while Marcus watched her with attentive affection. Marcus smiled, remembering that initial period of mutual discovery, when he was still learning to be a father and Emily was still learning to fully trust him. Rachel entered the office and saw Marcus looking at the photograph. "What picture is that?" "From the beginning of our family. Look how small Emily was." Rachel approached and looked at the photo nostalgically. "I remember that day. Emily was showing me every corner of the garden, like she was a tour guide. And remember how nervous I got whenever she climbed the trees?" "I remember. You thought being a father would be easier because Emily was already grown, but you discovered that a father's love brings worry, regardless of age." Marcus laughed at the memory. "I learned that being a father doesn't come with an instruction manual, no matter how you come to fatherhood." At that moment, Emily entered the office, returning from university. "What are you guys talking about?" "We were looking at old pictures and remembering what we were like at the beginning of our family," said Rachel. Emily came closer to see the photograph. "Wow, I was really little, and look how nervous Dad looked." "I was nervous. It was all very new to me." Emily hugged Marcus from behind. "Dad, can I confess something? Back then I was nervous too. I was afraid you'd change your mind about me." Marcus turned to face Emily. "Really? You never showed it?" "A child learns to hide fears so they don't lose good things. But you two were so patient with me that I quickly understood I was safe." Emily's confession touched Marcus deeply. He had never suspected that behind Emily's seemingly easy adjustment lay natural insecurities. "Emily, I want you to know that even in those first days, even when I was still learning to be a father, there was never a moment of doubt about you being part of our family. I know that now. And I want you to know that you became exactly the kind of father a child dreams of having." Nathan appeared at the office door, returning from his guitar teaching. "Why is everyone in the office?" "We're looking at old pictures," said Emily. Nathan approached and looked at the photograph. "Emily, you were so small, and Dad had darker hair. Marcus laughed at Nathan's practical observation. Nathan, you weren't even born yet. You weren't even in the plans yet. Nathan became thoughtful. How did you know you would want another child? Nathan's question was interesting because it touched on the family's natural evolution. Nathan, said Rachel, after we became a real family with Emily, we felt our family was happy but not complete. We wanted Emily to have a sibling, and we wanted to experience having a baby from birth. And you got it right, because I'm the best brother in the world, said Nathan, making everyone laugh. Emily hugged Nathan affectionately. It's true, you are the best brother, even when you go through my things without permission. I don't go through them, I just borrow them temporarily. The dynamic between the siblings always amused Marcus and Rachel. Despite the age difference, they had developed a close and playful relationship. That night, during dinner, Emily made an announcement. Family, I have some news to share. What news? Everyone asked simultaneously. I received an offer to do an academic exchange in Spain during my last year of college. A semester studying child psychology at a university in Boston. Marcus felt a mix of pride and apprehension. Emily, that's an incredible opportunity. Spain has excellent psychology programs. That's what my professors said, but it's far, and it would be my first time living outside the country. Nathan looked worried. Emily, are you coming back? Emily smiled and ruffled her brother's hair. Of course I'm coming back, Nathan. It's just one semester, and I'll message you every day. Rachel showed the typical support of a mother who wants the best for her daughter, even if it means temporary distance. Emily, I think you should accept. International experiences will greatly enrich your education. Do you really think I should go? Marcus looked at Rachel and Nathan before answering. Emily, throughout your life, we've taught you to seek opportunities that help you grow and help other people. This seems to be exactly that kind of opportunity. And you won't be worried. We'll be worried, of course, but we'll be prouder than worried. Emily smiled, clearly relieved by the family's positive reaction. Then I'll accept, but on one condition. During the mid-semester break, you all come visit me in Boston. Really? I can go to Spain? Asked Nathan, excited. You, Daddy, and Mommy, we'll explore Spain together. The prospect of the family trip excited everyone. Marcus realized Emily had found a way to balance personal growth with maintaining family bonds. 6 months later, Emily departed for Boston. The farewell at the airport was emotional, but not dramatic. The whole family was confident it was a temporary separation that would strengthen Emily as a person and a professional. Nathan felt Emily's absence more than he expected. He was used to his sister's presence, their daily conversations, and her involvement in family activities. Dad, Nathan said a few weeks after Emily's departure, the house feels quieter without her. That's true. Emily always brought a lot of energy to the house. When I go to college, will you feel the same way? Marcus realized Nathan was processing the inevitability of his own future independence. We'll miss you, but we'll also be proud to see you following your own dreams. Dad, can I promise you something? Of course. I'll always live near you, even when I'm an adult. I don't want our family to spread out too much. Nathan's promise touched Marcus, but also worried him slightly. Nathan, I want you to know we'll support your choices, even if they include living far away. True family stays together regardless of physical distance. But I like our family being together. I do too, but sometimes growing up means exploring the world beyond the family, and then coming back with more wisdom and experience. Nathan nodded, but Marcus realized they still needed to work on this issue of gradual independence with him. Emily adapted quickly to life in Boston. Her daily messages to the family were full of enthusiasm about her classes, her new international friends, and the cultural discoveries. She had also started a research project on child psychology techniques developed specifically for children from immigrant families. Marcus was impressed by Emily's rapid adaptation. At 20 years old, she displayed an independence and self-confidence that filled him with deep pride. Rachel, he said one night, I think we managed to prepare Emily for the world better than we imagined. How so? She's alone in a foreign country, but she doesn't seem scared or lost. She seems excited and confident. I think that happens when a child grows up knowing they are loved unconditionally. She has a solid emotional foundation that allows her to explore the world without fear. Marcus agreed. The emotional security Emily had developed within the family had become a tool for navigating the adult world. Nathan was developing well during Emily's absence. He naturally took on more responsibilities at home, participated more actively in family conversations, and showed growing maturity. Marcus noticed that Nathan was using the time to discover more about his own identity, separate from the constant influence of his older sister. 3 months after Emily's departure, the time came for the family trip to visit her in Boston. Nathan was euphoric at the prospect of seeing Europe and reuniting with his sister. The trip was a transformative experience for the whole family. Emily guided them through Boston with the enthusiasm of a local, introduced her new friends, and showed them the research projects she was working on. Marcus observed how Emily had gained sophistication and cosmopolitanism, yet completely retained her family values and her essential personality. Nathan was fascinated by the architecture, the history, and especially the traditional Spanish music he found in the streets of Boston. "Dad," Nathan said during the trip, "when I grow up, I want to travel to other countries too." "Of course, Nathan. The world is very big and has many interesting things to see. But I'll always come back home. You'll always have a home waiting for you." During the 10 days in Boston, the family reconnected on an even deeper level. The experience of being together in a completely new environment created special memories and strengthened bonds. Emily returned to the United States 2 months later, transformed by the international experience. She had acquired fluency in Spanish, knowledge about European psychological techniques, and a network of academic contacts that would be valuable for her future career. Nathan welcomed her with enthusiasm, but Marcus noticed he had grown emotionally during his sister's absence and did not completely revert to the previous dynamic. "Nathan has become more mature," Emily commented to Marcus. "It's true. I think the temporary absence was good for both of them." Emily completed college with distinction and was accepted into a master's program in child psychology. She decided to specialize in family therapy, inspired by her own experience of building a non-traditional family. Nathan, now in his senior year of high school, had decided to study music with a focus on music education. He wanted to use music as a therapeutic and educational tool, especially with children in vulnerable situations. Marcus observed how both children had chosen careers that combined personal passions with positive social impact. It hadn't been an explicit influence from the parents, but a natural result of growing up in an environment where helping others was valued. On the day of Emily's graduation, Marcus gave an emotional speech. "Emily, when I met you 15 years ago, you were an intelligent child with concentration difficulties. Today, you are a brilliant young adult ready to help other families find harmony and happiness. Your journey taught me that potential can be developed when there is love, support, and proper opportunities. Now you will take these lessons to other families who need the same kind of support we gave you." Emily replied with tears in her eyes, "Dad, everything I've achieved was built on the foundation you, Mom, and Nathan gave me. Now it's my turn to build solid foundations for others." Nathan, now a 17-year-old young man, also made his own statement. "Emily, you've always been my example of how to be a good person. Now I'll try to be a good example for others too." The graduation ceremony marked an important transition for the family. Emily was officially beginning her professional career, Nathan was preparing for university, and Marcus and Rachel were entering a new phase of parenthood. That night, the family celebrated at home, surrounded by close friends and some of the children who had been impacted by the social programs over the years. It was a party that represented not only Emily's individual success, but the collective success of a family that had used their privileges to create positive impact. Tyler, Nathan's childhood friend, now a 17-year-old young man about to graduate as well, gave an impromptu speech. "Thompson family, you changed my life when I was a hungry child. Today I'm going to university to study engineering, and my mother has a stable career. You taught me that family can be built through love and choice." Marcus was moved hearing Tyler. He remembered the skinny, shy boy Nathan had brought home years ago, and now saw a confident, articulate young man ready to pursue his own dreams. That night, after all the guests had left, the family gathered on the porch for a final conversation about this phase that was ending. "Dad," said Emily, "what did you learn about being a father all these years?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "I learned that being a father is less about controlling your children's future and more about giving them the tools to build their own futures. I learned that unconditional love generates trust, that opportunities generate responsibility, and that families can be created in many different ways." "And you? What did you learn about being children?" asked Rachel. Emily answered first. "I learned that children shouldn't be grateful all the time, but should be aware of the sacrifices parents make. I learned that growing up is a gradual process that requires patience from both sides." Nathan made his own contribution. "I learned that being a child is about receiving love, but also giving love, and that family works best when everyone takes care of everyone." Rachel smiled at her children's answers. "And I learned that being a mother means loving unconditionally, but it also means teaching independence. It means protecting, but it also means letting go when it's time to let go." Marcus looked at his family gathered on the porch and felt deep gratitude for the journey they had taken together. "15 years ago, when I followed you in the rain," he said to Rachel, "I was looking for something I didn't even know I was missing. Today I know I was looking for purpose, genuine connection, and the opportunity to be the best version of myself." Emily smiled. "And did you find all that?" "I found all that and much more. I found a family that taught me that true success isn't what you achieve alone, but what you build together with people you love." Nathan, always practical, asked the final question. "So will our family stay like this forever?" Marcus and Rachel exchanged affectionate looks. "Nathan," said Rachel, "our family will always be based on love, respect, and mutual support forever. Circumstances will change. You'll get married, have children, pursue careers. But our foundation will always be the same. And when you grow old, we'll take care of you," said Emily. Marcus felt his eyes well up. "Emily, if you become half as good parents as you've been children, your own children will be very lucky." That night, Marcus fell asleep thinking about how an impulsive decision to follow his housekeeper had resulted in the most extraordinary family he could have imagined. Emily and Nathan had become exemplary young adults. Rachel had become a complete life partner, and he himself had become an infinitely better person than he was before. 2 years later, Emily was established as a family therapist at a renowned clinic. Nathan had started his music education course and was developing innovative methods to use music as therapy with autistic children. Marcus, at 55, had decided to semi-retire to dedicate himself more intensely to social programs. Rachel had taken over the complete management of the companies, demonstrating executive skills that impressed even Marcus. The family had found a new balance, where each member was professionally fulfilled but maintained strong family bonds. They gathered for family dinners every week, kept traditions like the annual trips, and continued to be a source of mutual support. Emily had started a serious relationship with a fellow psychologist who shared her values about family and social responsibility. Nathan was dating a young musician who shared his passion for music education. Marcus watched with satisfaction as the children had chosen partners who complemented their personalities and supported their life missions. One special Sunday during the family dinner, Emily made an announcement that would change the family dynamic again. "Family, Daniel and I are engaged." The news was met with shouts of joy and hugs. Nathan immediately asked if he could be the wedding musician, and Rachel already began mentally planning the ceremony. Marcus hugged Emily and then Daniel, the young man who had won his daughter's heart. "Daniel, welcome officially to the family. I hope you're prepared for eternal Sunday dinners and compulsory family trips," said Marcus, provoking laughter from everyone. "I'm more than prepared, Mr. Marcus. In fact, I'm looking forward to being part of all this." Marcus saw in Daniel the same qualities he admired in Emily: intelligence, compassion, and a commitment to positive social impact. The young man worked with family therapy for underprivileged communities and demonstrated values completely aligned with the family's. Emily's wedding was planned as a celebration not only of her union with Daniel, but of the expansion of the family built with so much love over the years. Nathan proudly assumed the role of protective older brother, humorously questioning Daniel's intentions and offering unsolicited advice on how to take good care of Emily. "Nathan," said Emily, laughing, "you're 17. What marital advice can you give?" "I can give advice on how to live with you. Daniel, she's stubborn, leaves her room messy, and always thinks she's right." "Nathan," protested Emily. "But she's also the most caring, loyal, and intelligent person you'll ever meet," Nathan added. Daniel smiled at the dynamic between the siblings. "Nathan, I promise to take good care of your sister." "You're smarter than I thought," replied Nathan, officially approving Emily's fiancé. The wedding took place in a hall that Marcus rented especially for the occasion. The ceremony was small and intimate, but included all the people who had been important in the family's journey: company employees, children served by the social programs, teachers who had made a mark on Emily's life, and friends who had become chosen family. During the ceremony, Marcus walked Emily down the aisle, a moment that moved him more than he had anticipated. "Daddy," whispered Emily as they walked, "thank you for teaching me what kind of man I should choose to marry." "How so?" "Nathan has all the qualities I admire in you: kindness, generosity, and commitment to family." Marcus felt that was one of the greatest compliments he had ever received. In his speech at the reception, Marcus spoke about how Emily had transformed his life more profoundly than she could ever imagine. "Emily," he said, "when you came into my life, I thought I was saving a child. Today I understand that the one who was saved was me. You taught me that family isn't just about blood, but about daily choices of love, support, and dedication. Now, Nathan, you are gaining not only an exceptional wife, but also a family that will love you unconditionally and support you in all of life's important moments." Emily cried throughout the speech, and when it was her turn to speak, she said, "Dad, Mom, Gabriel, you gave me the emotional foundation that allows me to build my own family today with confidence and joy. Nathan, you are marrying not just me, but a tradition of family love that I hope we will perpetuate with our own children." The mention of future children especially moved Marcus, who already envisioned the possibility of becoming a grandfather. Gabriel performed at the reception, playing and singing a song he had composed specifically for Emily's wedding. The lyrics spoke about how siblings remain connected, even when they follow different paths in life. The reception was a perfect celebration of the union of Emily and Nathan, but also of the extended family Marcus had built over the years. After the wedding, Emily and Nathan moved into a house nearby, keeping the tradition of Sunday dinners and regular family gatherings. Marcus was happy to see that Emily had chosen a partner who valued family bonds as much as she did. Gabriel was now in his second year of college, excelling in his studies and already developing practical music education projects with special needs children. He had inherited the family's sense of social responsibility, but expressed it through his own passion for music. Marcus and Rachel were enjoying a new phase of life, where they could focus more on themselves as a couple, but still maintained active roles as parents and in-laws. 1 year after the wedding, Emily announced she was pregnant. The news was met with euphoria by the whole family, especially by Gabriel, who was excited about the prospect of being an uncle. "I'm going to be the coolest uncle in the world," declared Gabriel. "Gabriel," said Emily, "you are going to be an amazing uncle. I hope you teach my child to play music. I'll teach music, soccer, video games, and how to make Mom laugh when she's angry." Marcus watched the preparations for the arrival of his first grandchild with an emotion he hadn't anticipated. It would be the first time he would experience unconditional love from the birth of a child, something he hadn't experienced even with Emily or Gabriel. Rachel was radiant at the prospect of being a grandmother. She had already started knitting baby clothes and planning how to reorganize the house to have the grandchild over regularly. During Emily's pregnancy, Marcus reflected on how his family had evolved in such an organic and beautiful way. From a lonely man, he had become a husband, father, father-in-law, and now would be a grandfather. Each role had brought him unique joys and challenges. Emily gave birth to a baby girl, who was named Olivia. When Marcus held his granddaughter for the first time, he cried tears of pure joy. "Olivia," he whispered to the baby, "you were born into a family that will love you unconditionally forever." Nathan, now 20 years old and in his junior year of college, proudly assumed the role of protective uncle. He sang to Olivia, invented musical stories, and was already planning all the things he would do with her when she grew up. "Dad," Nathan said to Marcus, "now I understand how you felt when you met Emily and me. It's incredible to love someone from the very first moment." Marcus smiled at Nathan's observation. "That's exactly it, son. And the best part is that this love only grows with time." Olivia became the center of joy for the family. Emily balanced motherhood and career in an exemplary way, fully supported by Daniel and the extended family. Marcus discovered that being a grandfather was even more rewarding than being a father. He could enjoy all the special moments with Olivia, but without the primary pressures and responsibilities of parenting. 2 years later, Nathan graduated with a degree in music education and began working at a school specializing in children with special needs. He had developed innovative techniques that combined music with occupational and emotional therapy. Marcus watched Nathan's graduation with immense pride. The boy he had met at 4 years old, playing in the square with his mother, had become a young adult dedicated to making a difference in the lives of vulnerable children. During Nathan's graduation party, Marcus gave another emotional speech. "Nathan, you grew up seeing how our family works when everyone supports each other. Now you're taking that lesson to hundreds of children who will benefit from your talent and dedication." Nathan responded with a maturity that impressed everyone. "Dad, I learned by watching you that true success isn't what we achieve for ourselves, but what we manage to provide for others. I want my career to be an extension of the values I learned at home." In that moment, Marcus felt his mission as a father was complete. He had raised 2 exceptional adults who would use their talents and privileges to positively impact the world. Olivia was now 2 years old, a happy and intelligent child who charmed the entire family with her vibrant personality. She had inherited Emily's creativity, Nathan's musicality, and Marcus's natural charisma. Marcus spent hours playing with Olivia, reading to her, and teaching her about the world. It was a completely different experience from being a father, more relaxed and contemplative. Emily and Daniel announced they were expecting their second child. The family was preparing for another addition to the next generation. Nathan had begun a serious relationship with Ashley, the musician he met in college. They worked together developing music education programs for public schools. The family was flourishing in every direction, professionally, personally, and socially. Marcus often marveled at how his impulsive decision to follow Rachel had generated so much happiness and purpose. On a special Sunday afternoon, 3 generations of the family were gathered in the house's garden. Olivia played among the adults. Emily and Daniel talked about plans for the second baby. Nathan and Ashley planned musical projects. And Marcus and Rachel observed the whole scene with deep satisfaction. "Marcus," Rachel said, "can you believe everything we've built? Sometimes I can't. It seems like a dream too good to be true." "It's not a dream. It's the result of conscious choices of love, hard work, and a lot of patience." Olivia approached Marcus and climbed onto his lap. "Grandpa, tell a story?" "What story do you want to hear, Princess?" "Our family story." Marcus smiled. Olivia always asked him to tell our family story, even though she was too young to fully understand. Once upon a time, there was a man who lived alone in a very big house. He had everything money could buy, but he had nothing his heart needed. Olivia listened attentively, even though she didn't understand all the words. One day, he followed a very special woman to her home and discovered she had an even more special little girl. And that little girl taught the man that family isn't just who you're born with, but who you choose to stay with. And then they became a true family, full of love, laughter, and much joy. And that family grew and grew until a little princess named Olivia arrived, who brought even more light to everyone. Olivia applauded the end of the story, as she always did. Emily observed the scene and commented, Daddy, you tell this story a different way each time, but the ending is always the same: love and family. Because that's the only ending that matters, replied Marcus. In that moment, Marcus looked around and saw his life complete. Rachel, his partner and best friend; Emily, the daughter who had taught him about fatherhood; Daniel, the son-in-law who had become a son of the heart; Nathan, the son who brought him daily joy; Ashley, who was becoming part of the family; and Olivia, who represented the future of everything they had built. Marcus understood that following Rachel on that rainy afternoon had been the first step of a journey that had completely transformed him. From a successful but empty businessman, he had become a fulfilled man whose legacy would not be measured in money, but in lives positively impacted. As the sun set over the garden where his family was gathered, Marcus felt deep gratitude for every moment, every decision, and every person who had contributed to that happiness. Life had taught him that true wealth was not what you possessed, but what you shared with those you loved. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story of overcoming and family. Do you believe Marcus made the right decisions? How would you act in his place? Share your opinion in the comments. I love reading each one and knowing where you're watching from. If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, leave your like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.